You see your bird up there? It's like, you trick me? I didn't trick you. And I watch it. He's like, oh, they look like me. You already went out, driving crazy. Wanted to see the cats. They didn't want to see you, man. They smell you all day, bro. They smell you. Oh, man. Not yet. Come over there. It's on the floor. On your little thing. Eyes are tired, massa. Eyes are tired, massa. Hey, Snooster, what's up, mama? You the only one in? Eyes are tired, massa. Eye is a tired, massa. I'm waiting on my upper so I can build this rifle. I'm gonna put it together. I was thinking about selling it, but I might just keep it. Excuse me. Why'd y'all sign me up? Okay. Waiachi 1200. Definitely. Only for 40. I need the batteries. Four six eight, right? If I remember right. If I remember right. Yeah. Yep. Dude. Man, you retarded. You on drugs, cuz. Never expect something from those who have no expectations. Never expect from those who have no expectations. One of my great sayings, never expect from those who have no great expectations. Yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'm ready to make my lobster salad. Let's get it in. Let's get it in. My apologies, y'all. I thought it was kind of serious in our little world of lies. Okay, let's time chart. Hey, so what's going on? Snoo Stew T Hines. Anybody else is in? Okay. We're gonna get right into the Iron Republic. I got another package coming. I really got to pay attention to be able to hear the bell, because I know as long as they don't put it at the wrong address, I had to call the people and tell them, this idiot that y'all hired, can y'all put the people that's usually doing it? And we had to stand in. Well, do they know how to read a big number 7 on the side of the building? They put it at the manager, and the manager like, because it's a same address but a different building. And I'm like, the idiot must not look at the door. And he did it twice. I actually watched him drop it off over there, and I'm looking at this big number, and I'm like, and so he waves at me. I'm like, are you stupid? Someone I'm not used to seeing, you know? So if I hear the vehicle, I might stop just to go out there and make sure he drops it off at the right place. Supposedly, let me check to make sure again. It says it's out for delivery. The other thing, which I'm not going to mention on here, because you know we got a bunch of individuals that think they control the narrative, and they don't really control nothing other than the illusion that they're in control of something. That's the world we're dealing with. Excuse me, my apologies. So it is, right? Oh, for date, see? All right. Let me see. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right. That's been delivered, right? Okay. Yeah, whatever. Okay. All right, so it's out for delivery, and I guess it'll get here. Is it FedEx or UPS? I'm just checking. My apologies. Just want to make sure. I had to take everything off the internet. Internet's acting retarded, right? Okay. All right. Okay, so it's already submitted, dude. All right, so it's good. Let me see if that's one. Oh, it's my boy with his big long back truck. I had a long back truck. I'll never get another one. And it looks like, okay, 14 updates. So it's UPS. It'll be here in about an hour, probably, maybe less. All right, let's get into the Iron Republic. How's it going? How's it going, everybody? Salutations, and may grace be with you, for you are grace. Okay, now I'm gonna show you again. Iron Republic, edited by C.J. Austin. And if you see somebody else read it, know that it is not the same as The Man Across the Ice Wall and other books. Okay, I haven't received the other two, but it's saying that it's yesterday in Gmail it said shipped. So I guess that means that it's going to go to wherever it's going to go to Texas, then I guess the Flagstaff. So hopefully by next week we'll see it. So, and gotta get that. I'm going right into reading it. I'm sorry, y'all. It's the next 2 parts to those 3 parts. Now, maybe I should just read them all together, right? Y'all let me know, okay? Hey, Sharisa Pearl, how are you? All right, here we go. It's a firearm part, so I definitely don't want to just leave it out there. Nobody's gonna steal from us here. Everybody's armed and dangerous to the T. Seriously. But and people like me like to leave our windows and stuff open. Even though my front door is unlocked. Oh yeah. Oh, it is. Come right on in. Anyway, and the purpose of this is that there may be work for all to do. Now, we were talking yesterday when we left off with this, okay? We were talking about how everything is set up in the Republic, the Iron Republic. That's not the literal name. Here we go. Tap to retry. Something went wrong, okay? But it's how it was set up here until these Ashkenazis, these lying bastards, and all these little pale skins who swear by the lie of their history. I actually had somebody, well, I was just saying, oh, you're flying a rubber flag. All right. Yeah, it's mine. He says, huh? I said, it's mine. It's mine. All mine. And he looked at me and I said, maybe you really need to study some real history. He just looked like, I was saluting with you. No, you're not. Your ancestors didn't fight for the South or the Confederacy, the true Confederacy. So I'll leave it. Anyway, and the purpose of this is that there may be work for all to do. Watch and pay attention. Don't just come and leave. This is going to get good. That is the purpose, replied my host. It gives you an insight on if we were to reestablish ourselves, how it would run. First, you would have to shake off all the all the shackles of lies we've been living. Their politics and everything. It's delusional. Okay? I gotta sneeze. What are you doing? Hey, you scratch. What you scratch? Oh, it's in the back of my nose. That is the purpose, replied my host. And the purpose is accomplished, for as it requires the work of all to supply the wants of all, there is no enforced idleness in this republic. But, said I, with a disposition to argue every point, one man with a machine can do the work of 100. And it seems to me that with your admirable political conditions, you might well employ the use of machinery. See, this is ignorance talking. Instead of looking at what he's surrounded by, the staple of his ignorance. That's why I say it's important to shake the world of lies we live in. Or you will never accept order as it is established, thereby giving the people more time for recreation and the improvement of the mind. But these people are happy. Certainly, there is a great temptation to use a machine that will do the work of 100 men, replied my host. And if the 100 men were the beneficiaries of this efficiency, there could be no excuse for not using it. You employ labor-saving machinery in the United States, and where does the work of 100 or 1,000 men? And that's what it says. And where it does, the work of 100 or 1,000 men, do they get the benefit of it? I could not say that they did. As a matter of fact, continued my host, does anybody derive any benefit except the owners of the machines? I was obliged to confess that they were the only direct beneficiaries, but that the cost of production was lessened, which of course must be to the advantage of all. Ah, my friend, exclaimed the professor, I very much fear that your argument is influenced by your legal training, for it is palpably one-sided in being predicted on the assumption that a machine doing the work of 100 men lessens the price of its products without diminishing the purchasing power of the 100 men who have been deprived of work by it. Now let us come down to practical illustration. You use machinery in the manufacture of shoes. To what extent does it lessen labor and costs? Now, how many of y'all know how to, like a cobbler, how many of y'all know how to make shoes? First thing in your mind is make a clay mold, get the different paraffins and wax, the things that lower your frequency, and then to melt them at the appropriate temperature and mix in the other sediments and stuff, so that way you can fill the mold and have a form for the soul. Now, how do you connect it? Well, we know cheap labor, they just glue it on, which we see it doesn't last that long. All our stuff were handmade and lasted. Very much indeed. I answered, warming up to the advantage I thought I saw. With improved machinery and a division of labor, I have been informed that a man can make a pair of shoes every 7 minutes at a cost of 30 cents. Very well. If you are not positive, though, as to the accuracy of your data. We will allow some latitude and say they make a pair in 12 minutes at a cost of 50 cents. That will be 50 pairs in a day of $10. Your man with the machine then has done the work of 50 men, and what pay does he receive? From the best of my information, an average of about $2 per day, I replied. Your man is paid $2 a day and turns out a product that sells for $25 in. Oh no, I interrupted. That costs $25 to make. I see, said my host, smiling. This is the cost of making. Now, what do these shoes sell for? I should say an average of $1.50. Ah, then this man does the work of 50 men and turns out a product that is worth $100 more than the cost of production. Who gets this $100? Asked my host, laying down his form and looking across the table at me with an air of affected simplicity. Shut up his ignorance, didn't it? Well, the man or company that owns the machine, I suppose, I answered, slightly nettled. Then the 49 men whose work has been done for them do not come in the matter of increased time for recreation. But what surprises me most, my host went on, is that these shoes can be made for 50 cents and sold for $1.50. How is this feat, so contrary to the law of competition, accomplished? In the first place, I answered, our manufacturers combine to maintain prices among themselves. And in the second place, we have a tariff, which brings the imported article up to that price. Imported? So, exclaimed my host, I begin to comprehend your system, which I presume was the same when I left the country. But as I was quite a young man and had never paid much attention to such matters, I retained no knowledge of the subject. Now let us look into this system in its practical application. Here is a machine that in one day, with the application of one man's labor, does the work of 50 men, thereby depriving 49 men of the opportunity to work, learn a skill, and pay. And the value of the product, it turns out, it earns the wages of 50 men, and yet all that labor gets out of it is the paltry sum of $2, or not enough to pay for the result of 15 minutes of its time, the balance going to the owner of the machine. So while flesh and blood and brains and skill earns $2 for labor, wood and iron and steel earns $50 for capital. And this wonderful machine, too, in all probability, is the product of skill and labor at the same miserable wage. Is this system conducive to an equitable distribution of wealth among the people? Does it not rather impoverish the 49 men whose work is done by the machine and enrich one man who gets the value of 50 men's work for the price of one? I cannot deny so logical a conclusion. Now, in the Iron Republic, continued the professor, Mr. Morris, where machinery is not allowed to supplant labor to produce 50 pairs of shoes in one day, would probably require the work of 50 men, and the value of their product would be divided among them. So the question resolves itself into this proposition. Which is better, to let 50 men earn $1 a piece, or to let 2 men earn $100? And in parentheses it states, one of whom works while the other keeps books, end, of which amount the working man gets $2 while the bookkeeper gets the balance. The proposition did not admit of debate, but I could not refrain from remarking that it seemed a pity that 50 men should labor a day to accomplish what an inanimate machine might do without toil or fatigue. It'd be different if the owner was doling the money out to everybody and everybody was happy. There goes no order and control. Not necessarily, retorted my host. In appearance and according to the ethics of industrial economy, there could be no, what are you doing? Objection to the machine doing the work of 50 men if the 50 men got the benefit of its work. Now, if this was recorded, I would edit that out, but no. And yet it is contrary to the divine economy, as expressed in the biblical injunction that man shall eat bread by the sweat of his brow. And like every other human practice that runs contrary to the divine order, is harmful in its results, and I think your system must demonstrate it. Notwithstanding the use of machinery, you doubtless have a large number of men who are steadily and permanently employed. Now, which makes the best showing, mentally and morally? This steadily employed class, or the unemployed or partially employed class, whose time for recreation and improvement of the mind has been increased by the use of machinery. I was compelled to confess that the employed class took precedence both in point of intelligence and morals. I remarked too that it was a disappointing fact that our public libraries, night schools, and other institutions founded for the benefit of elevation of the masses were least patronized by those of most leisure. It is not strange, though, said my host. The reasonable employment of the body prepares the mind for recreation. A man's mind, thought, especially if it be not well cultivated, having nothing to employ it but recreation, grows bad, just as most boys do who have nothing to do but play. The universe is founded on a plan, and that plan contemplates that every man shall work. The man who does not suffers, and society suffers by him. There are no exceptions to this rule. I confess that you have had the better of me all along, said I, but say that there are no exceptions to this rule, for many of our most intelligent and virtuous men are those who have grown vastly rich from the results of other men's labor. I may say most generous also, for in my country, hundreds of churches, colleges, libraries, beneficent institutions stand as monuments to this virtue in them today, and that's why people are dumbed down, mitigated to control, subjugated to stuff like the New World Order and all that other foolishness. And the peace people put in place are nothing but bobbling, confounded idiots. Y'all like to call politicians. I use it as a perverse language when I say it. Undoubtedly, assented the professor. And yet I must remind you in the first place that a man who becomes a millionaire from the increments of other men's labor can be no idler, for the mere keeping up with his business and getting the lions, tigers, and wolves' share of the product of the labor employed by him will keep him busy. And in the second place, when a man makes his gifts with money obtained that way, is such generosity in any manner different from that of Robin Hood, who robbed one class and gave to another? Is it even as commendable? For the old highwayman invariably took from the rich and gave to the poor, at the worst doing evil that good might come. Robbing from Peter, by contributing to the equalization of wealth, while your millionaires take from the poor and give in such a way as to enhance their reputation, this being the only thing to be desired after having acquired more money than they can use in promoting their pleasures. From my point of view, there is no more generosity in such actions than there was in Trajan's lavish expenditure on his tomb. I think you will find, too, that the sons of these millionaires who inherit the money without the training that came with its accumulation will suffer and make society suffer, thus providing the old Bible doctrine that the sins of the parents are visited onto the children, unto the third and fourth generation. That doctrine may be true in theory, I replied, laughing, arrogance and ignorance, but in my country, the first generation usually exhausts the possibility of evil by getting rid of the root of it. And as far as money itself may contribute directly to evil, asserted my host, but a life of profligacy and dissipation made possible by inherited wealth may leave a train of evils behind it extended to generations unborn. And we see that, and we see that today, don't we? And that word, I've never seen that. I know it has to do with profit, but profligacy. Okay. Then you regard wealth as an evil, do you? I asked. I certainly regard wealth as a most prolific source of evil, and where it is acquired, in the manner we have been discussing, that is, where a poor man is required to make shoes for a rich man for 50 cents and then pay 150 for the same shoes for himself and family to wear, it isn't evil per se. You say this is partly the result of legislation, and if it is, yours is a government of the minority, for there must be fewer rich than poor men. I grant what you say, I replied. Government is of, for, and by the rich. Always has been and probably always will be, because wealth is power. No, it's not. But it does not necessarily follow that for that reason it is bad. In the cooperation of mind and matter in the affairs of human government, as in everything else, mind must predominate. In predominating, it secures the conditions of life most favorable to itself and thus extends its sphere as in an exploring party of a few men by getting more than their share of food are enabled to penetrate faster and further than their comrades. But as they blaze the way they open up, it is easier for the rest to follow. And so I believe the world has been the gainer by the very inequalities and injustice which you condemn. In its age-long and worldwide advance, the human mind has not marched in the phalanx under favoring conditions. The stronger and boldest have broken away and led the advance, scaling walls to others, impregnable, and climbing heights inaccessible to the average, and placing beacon lights to make the ascent easier for those that follow. Like the music industry with the Negroes that, hey, look, you suck my Johnny, or let me bone you in the butt or bone me in my butt. You can get rich too. Other than that, you got to keep paying me back and with interest. So all I got to do is suck your Johnny. Come to the house party tonight. Then you get there and you second guess, but you've already had the drink and you've been Mickey or roofied. You know they have you in a compromising position. Now you're an obedient slave. So you'll dance, make sneakers with red blood in it. Say that all of a sudden from being a street thug in Louisiana, you're transitioning. Running looking like some pale-skinned bat who used to be Little Kim. I mean, come on. Look at all the women with these weird hips and these, like they're wearing a thing around their waistline and plastic boobs. But when you see them butt naked, they got these black little dots where they've been injected, cut, lines, and sliced just to be someone. The perversion is by those who have those believing that fiat in 1971 made worthless by Nixon, the Ashkenazis, under Henry Kissinger, and all these other deplorable statesmen and military operators who have asserted themselves in certain positions. You think that is order, and you stay on those concentration camps, looking at what you're going to purchase next? It has no purpose. You could throw it in the garbage, and in 2 months you'll forget all about it. My dear sir, exclaimed the professor, your figure is very pretty, but it is so only because of the beautiful words in which you have clothed it. Skill in the art of dressing may be made to hide many defeats. With a sly glance at the ladies, but I am not going to be taken in by mere external appearances. It is not your figure I find fault with, but your logic. Let us state your proposition in the form of a syllogism and proceed logically. Major premise. In its advancement, mind will secure to itself the conditions most favorable to its expansion. Minor premise. But wealth is most favorable in the expansion of the mind. Conclusion is, it is therefore by the aid of wealth that the human mind has advanced to its present wonderful stage of development. That is wow. Is this a fair and logical statement of the proposition? I admitted that it was. He didn't even hear what he said. Listen to this. Let me run it against you again. Major premise. In its advancement, mind will secure to itself the conditions most favorable to its expansion. Not natural here, not order. Minor premise now, but wealth is most favorable to the expansion of the mind. Wealth makes you brighter and smarter. Conclusion. It is therefore by the aid of wealth that the human mind has advanced to its present wonderful stage of development. Doesn't he mean something else? Conflicted, corrupted, condemned, three C's. That's just me. Is this a fair and logical statement of the proposition? That's a question. After the statement, I admitted that it was in his ignorance. Very well. Then I dispute your minor premise and deny your conclusion, said my host positively. Wealth is not favorable to the expansion of the mind, and for its wonderful development, it acknowledges no financial obligation whatsoever. Under the patronage of wealth, which has to be the gainer by its product, mind has wrought some of its most beautiful creations, and in modern times, wealth has supplied, in some instances, tools to facilitate its work. But in the main, money has rather been the enemy of mind and wealth, whether supporting monarchical extravagance, religious bigotry, or personal vanity and ambition, has tended to suppress rather than promote the highest and noblest qualities of the human mind. Well, we know that J.D. Rockefeller and the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, created the education system only to dumb down once they had learned how to do what we taught them, trade schools, and then decided to make that to a plausible tool to get rich off and to create and subvert individuals and create classes steeped in ignorance with all kind of ominous hates and tyranny and everything else. Anyway, its sublimest efforts have been achieved in poverty, in exile, in dungeons even. And as for scaling walls impregnable, and climbing heights inaccessible, and planting beacon lights for others, as per your pretty figure, the most gifted men have gone to the stake or scaffold because power, which has always been synonymous with wealth, did not approve. I began to get warm in the collar. He was getting heated. For though I had engaged in the discussion more for information than argument, the ease, it's an argument now because it's being made to look like a stick. Ease and skill with which my opponent had met and defeated me at every point aroused all of the belligerency of my nature, his ignorance, which we see that today. But what made it more exasperating, too, the ladies seemed to be deeply interested listeners and caught every point. Since you have appealed to Caesar, render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, said I, unto Caesar will we go. If you resort to logic, I will meet you with your own weapon and state another syllogism. I thought it had been soliloquy, but any syllogism for you to disprove. Premise. In all times, wealth and power have been used to repress and retard the development of the mind. Minor premise. But it is in the nature of mind to resist oppression, and its mightiest energies have been aroused in this resistance. Conclusion, therefore, wealth and power have unwittingly contributed to the development and expansion of the mind. And very neatly turned, cried the professor, while the lady smiled and Miss Helen even infringed the neutrality laws by clapping her hands. Then your position, continued my host, is that everything which opposes the advancement of the mind really facilitates its development. Not precisely. Everything which arouses the resistance and the overcoming instinct of the mind, I returned. The point well taken and strongly stated, conceded the professor. But what wealth and power had contributed to the development of the mind by such direct oppressions as to arouse resistance and wake its slumbering energies is slight in comparison with the blight and stagnation induced by war, financial oppression, and industrial wrongs. And we know firsthand. To destroy everything harmonic, to set up and infringe by way of monies made by the common folk 440, A440, 808, sent that close wars against brothers and sisters on earth, the stagnation, drugs they have created and poured into communities who are struggling because they can't meet meager wages because of the Zionists who are the so-called landlords running the banks, remove the gold and silver standard, enslave the people blindly by parents with social security cards and birth certificates that have nothing to do with life in itself, but to create this falsitude of the world, to pay rent, to poison the food, to poison the water, to contaminate the air. You charge these things to wealth then. Question. I do most unqualifiedly, responded my host. Homer would have us believe that the Trojan War was fought for love, but the wars of history have been for wealth and power. I make the point on you, I returned, that the poorest nations have been the least intelligent, and that industrial wrongs have always been greatest where ignorance has been grossest. I think that history will sustain me in the further assertion that war has been the great civilizer of the world. Incontrovertible statements all, asserted my opponent, and incorrect only as they confuse cause and effect. If the poorest nations have been the least intelligent, they were the poorest because they were the least intelligent and not unintelligent because they were poor. If industrial wrongs have been greatest where ignorance has been most dense, it is simply because the people being ignorant were least able to defend themselves against industrial wrongs. If civilization has been a product of war, it is a byproduct and resulted because, notwithstanding the barbarity and inhumanity of the wars, they brought different peoples together, and the knowledge of different nations by amalgamation was enlarged. War itself is debasing to the human mind. I take issue with you on that, said I hotly. War may be destructive, but it is not debasing. War may be cruel, but cruelty calls forth nobility. War may make widows and orphans, but it also makes heroes, and liberty and patriotism have been fructified by all the blood in the earth has ever drunk. And what has been the liberty of the world, my friend asked scornfully? But the illusion which people cherish when they have exchanged one set of masters for another. And what is the patriotism of the world but that savage and senseless prejudice which is cultivated by teaching the fools of nations to hate the fools of other nations? And when the fools of two nations have set by the ears by their rulers, they fight and maim and kill. And this is called glorious war? I beg a truce, I cried, seeing that my venerable host felt deeply on this subject while I was merely endeavoring to hold up my end of the argument. I find that I am no match for your iron Republicans. I have only encountered these accomplished ladies and yourself and Professor Helm, and on the subject of dress, industrial economy, and music, I find that I know nothing. I am eliminated, obliterated. In other words, to use an Americanism, I am not in it and hereby surrender. Foot, horse, and dragons. Dragoons. I cannot offer you my sword, for I presume there is no such thing in this model republic. They were all beaten into plowshares long since, answered my friend, smiling good-humoredly, so that formality will have to be dispensed with. I am generous, though, in victory, and will pay you the compliment to say that if your cause was worthy of your prowess, the result might be different. In all contests, though, the justice of a cause is not less an element of strength than the greatness of cannon and sharpness of steel. I bowed my acknowledgement of the compliment and indulged in the hope that I might yet find some vulnerable point in the Iron Republic, if for nothing else than to redeem myself in the fair eyes that had witnessed my discomfiture. I think you are entirely too magnanimous in professing defeat, said Miss Morris, taking part in the conversation for the first time and looking at me with her beautiful eyes, beaming with interest. If you are not too proud to accept an humble ally, I blowed again. I ventured to suggest that the enemy, smiling and flashing a glance at her father, she was, may attribute his victory, if indeed he has won it, to the fact that the fighting was all in his own territory where he was entrenched. It is my opinion, if I am worthy to be admitted to a council of war, that you run up the white flag too soon. With the glorious a promising alliance opens up to me, I replied facetiously, but with a peculiar thrill of gratification. I hasten to pull down the flag of defeat and beg that you will advance into the breach. That means to load up again. Well, said my fair ally, I reopened the attack by assertion that it was not alone in bringing the nations into closer intercourse that war has exerted a civilizing and elevating influence of the human mind. Tut tut, exclaimed her father, the romance of history and Sir Walter Scott have corrupted your mind. Kindled, rather, to history and Sir Walter, and when I read the deeds of Coeur de Lion and Ivanhoe, even of Dalgety and de Bracy, I cannot abide the goodness of the world today if the Iron Republic had been founded on the Babylonian Empire and its principles had received worldwide acceptances. Try to think of a history of the world without an Alexander or a Caesar or Frederick the Great. Or, that is powerful. I was surprised at the energy with which these words were uttered, and suspected that the concern, as though she had suddenly discovered in her, may not alter or amend, and perhaps with a man's the excess, dissipations, and sins of early years cannot be blotted out, and the experience of them may even serve to enhance the virtues of mature age. Excuse me. I had to correct my back. Sometimes such experiences become the foundation of a nobler and more purposeful life, and then the world's life will be unrounded and incomplete if it is not profited by the knowledge and experience of the past. It is not in me, but with my new ally, I was in the with thongs to that unconquerable beast that he could not run away when he would. I know the little kid with the lion in the boat. Anyway, I trust you will not be angry with me, Father, if I seem to dispute with you yielding firmness had in the past, which is the source of all that is most beautiful in the present. What is the inspiration of poetry and the great thoughts, but the high deeds which you impute to the recklessness of the world's youth? War is cruel, but does not its very cruelty prevent a more exalted heroism than the piping herdsman of utopia ever dreamed of? And may it not be in the plan of creation that sunshine and storm, tears and laughter, love and hate, war and peace shall alternate like day and night to the end of time? My daughter, answered her father, and that condition which has been the desire of the ages. But you are entitled to your opinions, and I would not have you repress them in deference to me. It is my faith, though, that the plan of creation contemplates the ultimate elimination of hate and strife and all evil whatsoever. And though he may not appeal to youth and a romantic imagination, the piping herdsman of utopia who tends his flocks and lives in, as long as he ain't bathing in the piss anyway, in peace and with clean hands and an upright heart, is to me a silly fancy of a foolish lady love. He just hit them both in the head. To my mind, Professor Hallam, who would walk around the block rather than tread upon De Leon, ever was. I'm pronouncing that way so you know it begins with a C. From every intelligent point of view. It may be wrong and wicked, cried the beautiful woman vehemently, with flashing eyes and flushed face. And if it is, I can't help it, and I don't care. Here we go. The loins are speaking, not the mind. But I am tired to death of this dreary monotony of peace and prosperity, and the ring of a spearhead upon a breastplate, or the clash of swords in a glorious cause, would make sweeter music for me than all the Aronia. For that matter. And bursting into tears, she rose hastily from the table and left the room. Well, I'll declare, exclaimed my host, pushing back his chair. Who can solve the female enigma? I could not. But the one under consideration has gratified me exceedingly by her strange conduct, though I could not tell exactly why. It is said that women are past finding out, and I have never been a careful investigator, but without understanding it, the contemptuous reference to the fiddlers of Aronia braced me up immensely. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that little read. You know I gotta mark it. That was phenomenal. That just got my loins all worked up and sweated. Oh, I just loved it. I could continue to read, you know. Want to read some more of that? This is a little ways to go now. We can bop it out. Come on, let's get it up. Oh, I heard something. If he put it at the wrong door, no. It should be my boy from the Navajo Nation, my homie. He used to come by and hey, you got any beers? I'm about to get off. I think I might have two. All right, let's continue, if you don't mind. Oh, excuse me. I could not, but the one under consideration had gratified me exceedingly by her strange conduct, though I could not tell exactly why. It is said that women are past finding out, and I have never been a careful investigator, but without understanding it, with a woman's penetration, probably misfilled with romance, she left the table. He called her out, also, and followed her daughter from the room. The meal had been concluded some time before, and Miss Moore's unexpected denouement, if the word led the way, and we adjourned to the library. 10 or 15 minutes after leaving the dining room, we were made aware by the ring of a gong that the carriage had arrived. And looking out, I saw a handsome vehicle with 2 seats beside the drivers, standing at the door. My host called for the ladies, and they came down immediately. Miss Helen blushed as she entered the room, and approaching her father with downcast eyes, kissed him on the cheek. If that is not belovingly begrudging. Anyway, how now, my young renegade? What means this treason to your country? He exclaimed, holding her face between his hands and looking at her with mock severity. It simply means that the country is all right, Ma Pierre, but that I am not ready for the millennium. She replied, smiling, and I mentally snapped my fingers at the fiddlers of Aronia. There was something in that glance which said plainer than words that there was a bond between us, and the alliance would be continued. She was attired for the drive in a blue flannel gown, buttoned to the throat like an English riding habit. I love that button up. Of course, oh man, I love that. Oh yeah, I'm old-fashioned, to shut up. With jaunty cap and gloves to match, her mother was similarly dressed in a dark brown suit, and without delay, we passed out to the carriage. As we stood by the carriage, while my host was giving the motorman directions, I love it. As I remember growing up here, and the motorcade, and the motorman, the motor car is here with the, what the hell? The carriage. While my Miss Morris remarked that I had best sit on the back seat with the professor, as looking forward, it gave a better opportunity for observation. The seats faced each other, and whether it was by accident or design, I hope the latter by design, her mother had no sooner spoken the words than Miss Helen stepped forward and placed her foot on the step to enter the carriage. I helped her in, and her mother after her, and then At another lightning-like flash of those wonderful eyes, which conveyed more meaning than any mere words, I entered the carriage and took my seat opposite to her. Professor Morris followed, taking his seat by my side, and I looked into the face of the peerless woman before me, so chaste and beautiful. Eyelids. I felt that, but for the presence of others, I must have fallen on my knees before her. If Cupid had let me pass through all the years before, unscathed, he was atoning for his dereliction by a most extraordinary display of archery, for which, with every glance of those glorious eyes, an arrow seemed to quiver in my heart, never having whatever it is of love. My resources in that direction were untouched. I had known this woman less than 2 days and already that feeling. Anyway, so impressed upon my heart's unfathomable eyes. Indeed, by some strange consciousness, it began to dawn upon me that I had looked upon that face and into those seen her in a dream. It seemed incredible to me that I had looked upon her for the first time, only the day before. It could not be. I could every changing expression of quick intelligence. Wow. Next we'll get into chapter 7. Damn, boy, that one right there. That. I ain't got to mark shit. Chapter 7, this should be. I just wanted to read a whole paragraph of that. I mean, a whole chapter. And man. Wow. I hope that was a good read. I really do. Yeah, she wants some good. And he sure blew it up all right. It's cool. My phone was going in and out. That's dumb, man. I don't know what's wrong with these people, man. It's 4G. It's got one line. Let me try and put the internet on. Let's see what happens, because they're messing with everything. Oh, you know what? Let's see. It might go out. If it goes out, I'm taking the internet back off, because my apologies, guys. And they want to do what they can. It's just sadists, I hope that y'all was able to hear me, though. Were y'all able to hear me? Anyway, let me holler at everybody. Hey, Snoo, T. Hines, Sharisa. I shared this on Instagram. Thank you, Mikey Hill. What's going on? You guys couldn't hang around. A lot of people probably couldn't hang around. But anyway, I'm going to get ready to sign off. We're over an hour, and you know that. Scott, what's going on, beloved? I hope y'all was able to hear the read, and it was enjoyable somewhat. But they're doing stuff on purpose. Tola Cherokee said the internet where she's at in Ohio is acting up. A friend of mine in Texas, and it's funny. It's just real funny that with the 5G, that it's acting. As long as y'all heard me, that's all that matters. It's serious. I am ready to get with about a couple of hundred people and start tearing these damn things down, doing more damage than help. You know what I mean? And I know way too many people, and I know they know way too many, and it's a grapevine who have had enough of it. They've literally had enough. I am serious, y'all. Anyway, take this hat off. It is pretty. It's about 97 degrees, and even though I got my sweatshirt on, I'm not dying over here. But I appreciate you guys hanging in for the read. And I put a couple of posts up. Did you see the one post I put up about the bird eats ants? It's like so many other things. I mean, you can go on about many things, and you saw the post. That's all I have to say. And you heard the reading. That's why it was important for me to read it all. I was going to read it all anyway. I was just putting on an act. So I hope they all enjoyed it. It's nothing but love and respect. You come in, new subscribers, appreciate you. My Cashapp, if you don't know, it's always in the description, but it's $, uppercase J, lowercase I-M, uppercase R, lowercase E-D, plus, no, it's Engine Gem, my fault. I've got so many passwords and stuff in the last, y'all wouldn't believe it. I want to make sure I get it right. I don't want to say it wrong. Usually Snoo put it in there, but this is in case. Oh, it says it's out for delivery. I just want to make sure I don't want to, because I know that some people be like, man, what are you talking about? But it's $, uppercase I, NDIAN, Indian, uppercase J, lowercase I M, 1. So that's my Cash App if you want to send a few dollars. What's this favorite? Oh, yeah. I appreciate it, Alicia Mason. Thank you. So, let me see. I can't show you that because then you see some of those things that are my investments. It's not that I'm lying or anything, but I mean, my investments is no business. My investments are nobody's in business. I need to pull them. It's still there. Okay. 200. Okay. Yeah, that's Indian. Thank you, Snoo. But hey, what's going on, family? So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and went over an hour, so it's cool. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. I appreciate it. I got some shorts, some other shooting videos upload and stuff. So I might do that this evening. I wanted to read that, and I might come on. Westside's talking about doing a podcast. As long as he does it within a good hour, because I know a lot of y'all on the West Coast, you sleep, you got to work tomorrow and everything. That's why I want to see my brother go ahead and do it at a decent time. You know what I'm saying? He works too, pretty late. He's a music engineer and stuff. So hopefully he can get at a decent time so we can get a lot of everybody come in there. And like I said, in the description, there's a lot of people that's making their own clothes, by us, for us. You dig what I'm saying? And I will continue to read. I'm actually purchased 2 kid books. So if you got some children, I'm going to set up an hour to read to children. All right. Thank you to me on this D. $10. Appreciate it, brother. I'm going to set up an hour. I've got 3 children's books that I ordered. I ordered Monday actually, and when they come in, I'll show you the books. All right. So I'm gonna keep ordering. I'll pay for those on my own. I'm gonna attempt to buy every other week to get a build. 3, and I'm reaching out to black writers. My uncle John Amos, Good Times Roots. He's got one. I'm gonna go ahead and order that too. He kind of pushed the black girl thing, and I don't like it, but I'm gonna get it because it's a good read. Okay. There's some other ones out of Africa, not out of Africa like Pan-African. I'm talking about some well, you heard when I was reading the book, stories of those who made it through the wars, didn't get perverted, didn't become too desensitized and numb, came to America, and they wrote stories about their childhood, but they didn't write about the blood and gore. They wrote how they stayed together and how they benefited each other, and they made it here, going to college, and they're in professions. Texas, mostly liberal states. And I'm gonna order some of those books. And there's a French writer who wrote about the kids in his neighborhood, the melanated children. And I'm looking at some. Thanks for another 10, brother. So on this, I think these would be really good to set up an hour where I can entertain the kids, have a laugh. I'm really good with the children. The children, I really am. And hey, thank you again, $10. And I think that hour alone for you to have your grandbabies, your nieces, nephews, once we get it started, whether it's 1 or 2, if you guys watch and say, this one's going to be good. This is going to be totally different from what I do with y'all. Y'all are adults. We're in a world of psyops and war and stuff. They don't need that. They see that. They need a place to expand their minds. And there's a couple of children books on kids who invent and make things too. So those are the books that I'm going to be purchasing, because if we're not going to get together on one land and build together, then I'll do my best. This is kind of new, to reach out to school systems, changing the damage that has been done by this system of perversions. All right. So number love, my beloved sisters, my wonderful, magnificent brothers. That's what that word Yehogari is, beautiful. Okay. That's what it means, my beautiful Sidanelli family. All right. I know some of y'all, times y'all sitting, you're like, nah. Okay. Y'all have a grand evening. I'm getting some good ones. Well, you know what? I actually was thinking about adding this to the read. And historically, not allegorically. And that way, let me put these over because I got to read these next. These going to be read. Other ones. This one right here, I really believe would be beneficial. Where is it at? Another one. And these right here would be great for the children. It's like when they get 7 to 8, you start teaching them gun safety and stuff. I think these, with the other two, would be great to expand their minds. We need dreamers again, but Trail of Tears. I don't have to make it gut wrenching or heartbreaking, but I can elevate them and let them know about my great grandmother, Lily Hooten and James Henry Hooten, and the perils and what they did. All right, I love y'all, and y'all have a wonderful time. Thank you.